Hi, I'm Anna. I'm the Learning Technologist in the e-learning department here at Newman. I'll be running these podcasts once a month, and the purpose of it is to showcase how tutors and departments are embedding digital literacies into their programmes of study. It's a chance for you to see how other academics are embracing technologies and see how they use those with their students. So if you do see anything you're particularly interested in or you want to find out a little bit more about, then please do get in touch with us in the e-learning department. We are more than happy to help you. So first up on this week's podcast is Steve Dixon. Steve has been using Big Blue Button with some of his students to run an online lecture. So if you haven't heard of Big Blue Button before, it's our web conferencing system, and it allows you to log into an online area from anywhere with an internet connection. So you could be at home, you could be at university or your workplace, wherever you are. And you can all interact with each other using, there's a text chat facility that you can all type into and everybody can see. The tutor can use audio to talk over maybe a presentation. You might have a PowerPoint presentation or a Word document or pictures, so you can present that to a group. But also with the mic facility, with the audio facility, you can get students involved as well, so it's not just the tutor talking over the top to present. You would then pass the microphone to students and get them involved. On top of that, you also have a webcam facility, so you can ask people to show themselves, they can talk over the webcams. It can be quite an exciting experience for students. So first up we've got Steve. He's talking to us about his experience with Big Blue Button and how he found it. So over to Steve.
Well, thank you very much for taking part in the e-learning podcast.
You're very welcome.
Why did you choose to run an online lecture?
Why did I choose to run an online lecture? First of all, well, several reasons. But first of all, the nature of the module itself. The module is on education and technologies, so it makes sense to embed those technologies into the learning and teaching process. So that's one particular reason. It gives me the experience of teaching via video conferencing, but also the students the experience of learning through and interacting, which is important, through that medium of Big Blue Button. And also, I think it's a first stepping stone, if you like, to then embed that practice possibly more across the whole subject area.
And did the BBB software support what you wanted to achieve?
Yes.
So, was there any problems or?
No problems whatsoever. What I did was I didn't just give a lecture, okay, which is important, and I'll come on to that later if you want. What I did, I amended what I was doing to suit the approach, without trying to be deterministic. But the first thing I did was my first slide was to put up instructions for what the students had to do to make sure they could participate. Their microphone settings, their webcam settings. But to be honest, I mean, you were there witnessing it. Most of them picked it up very, very quickly. And what I did in the week before, which was a standard face-to-face session as a lecture, I took them through the interface, explaining what the different windows were. Once they got over their initial excitement, because they're all very excited about doing it. So yeah, the software was great, and it allowed various levels of interaction as well. So the students could chat to each other, they could talk through their microphones, and as you saw, some actually got they were brave enough to actually show themselves through webcams too, which is fantastic, even though they were still in their pyjamas.
How did the students find Big Blue Button? Was the overall experience good for them? Was it positive or negative?
I have to say, neutrally and objectively, they loved it. The students were using the chat box whilst I was talking to them and explaining things. And the initial comments in the lecture were like, "This is strange, this is weird, don't like this." And those gradually softened throughout the lecture, and then sort of flipped across the spectrum, if you like. So towards the end, it's like, "Wow, this is fantastic!" I absolutely loved it. And this year, I specifically got the students to reflect on the whole practice and their experience through the discussion board in Moodle. And some of the comments were really, really insightful and interesting. they really liked it. And they obviously, one of the key points they kept stressing that they didn't want it to completely replace face-to-face lectures, but they liked it as part of a blended approach. And quite a few of them were picking up on, you know, which topics may be suitable to discuss in that way. So it was really interesting. They really enjoyed it.
Are there any particular aspects of it that worked particularly well that you'd like to highlight?
So what I did, I broke it down and actually set little activities for them to do and discussions, etc. There were certain questions I would ask and they could answer either via the chat board or using their microphones. They could talk and all the rest of the group could hear them, or those that were brave enough could actually use their webcams and everyone else could see them. So I think it was important to structure it that way.
If another member of staff wanted to run an online lecture using Big Blue Button, what advice would you give them?
Don't be scared. Give it a go. I would practice beforehand. Okay, not so much talking and stuff, because you know you do that for a living. But I would practice so you're comfortable with the software. Think about where you're going to deliver it from. I mean, I delivered it from my sofa at home, so if you can deliver it from your sofa at home, try it from your sofa at home to make sure it works. And then think about the structure of how you're going to deliver it. You know, how much time it's going to take. As I said, mine was about an hour, slightly over, I think. And then how are you going to structure that? You know, if you're just talking into a webcam for an hour, you know, it's going to be so boring. You might be the best lecturer in the world, but it's going to be pretty dull. What you want is to use those tools for a level of interaction. So think about how you could ask questions, how you could get the students actually to participate in it. Encourage them to use the tools that are there. So, like I said, the chat room and the mic, you know, use their microphones and their webcams. You know, get them involved and get them on board. And then, you know, once you've got them on board and their enthusiasm starts coming through, you're away. Just enjoy it. You know?
So, from your experience, are you going to be using Big Blue Button again?
Yes.
Okay, so thanks very much, Steve. If you do have any questions about using Big Blue Button, or if you like the sound of what Steve's been talking about, please do come and see us. We can talk to you about what options you have. When using Big Blue Button with your students, you do have the support of e-learning. We are always present on the online lectures that take place, just so we can look after the students from the technology side. So you're never on your own with that. Up next we have Stella Williams. I've had a chat with her about her use of clickers, which is otherwise known as the Wisdom sets, the handheld sets. Stella's been using those quite a lot with her students. So let's go over to Stella and see what she has to say about them all.
Thank you very much for taking part in this podcast, and the first one for the e-learning team. Can you briefly just explain what clickers are?
Okay, yep, I have a clicker in front of me. It's essentially like that part of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire where they ask the audience the question. It's just an opportunity where you give each student one of these remotes and they can answer a question remotely then, and you don't need to know what they've answered, and that it's just a way of giving them feedback on things that are going on during lectures and open days and other things like that.
And why did you decide to use clickers with your students?
Well, I decided to use clickers because in stats classes you tend to say, do you understand? And they say yes. I mean, it happens in other classes, but for some reason in stats classes it's worse. So what I wanted to do was get a way of finding out instantly whether or not they got something or not. So I used the clickers as a way of getting anonymous feedback from students. So where they might have previously felt, I think I know the answer, but I'm not going to go out there and tell everyone and find out I'm wrong. They can instead just answer on the remote, and then I can find out our group consensus, and then I can stop and go back to where I've lost them and carry on again, instead of having at the end of the session the 5 or 6 students taken up a half an hour afterwards saying I don't understand what it was that you're saying in the last 40 minutes of the session.
So was it just the feedback you used clickers for, or what other activities did you use clickers for?
Yeah, it was primarily, I used them for, and originally it was for revision sessions. So I'd give them, because we have multiple choice exams in the first year, I gave them a couple of example questions, got them to feedback on that, and then the ones that they didn't get, that would be what I focused on. So you've kind of got to be prepared, because it could be any of them that they don't understand, but you've got a degree of where you think they might not get it anyway, and you can give them sort of obvious pitfalls, areas where they tend to get it wrong, so you can sort of prime them to get it wrong, and then you can go, no, this is what you've misunderstood. But I've also used them in everyday sessions as well, just as occasional, do you understand what we're doing so far sort of points. And most recently with open days, as just a way of showcasing some of the different ways that you can learn and give feedback in classes.
And how did you think the students responded to using the clickers?
They loved it because it's different. Not to say that all my other teaching methods are boring, but they do love having things that they can mess with. There was lots of comments about the fact that phones used to look like this and they don't anymore. So they did like it, and in the mid-module feedback and the end of module feedback, they were saying that they liked those sessions and liked to see them used more.
And what advantages do you think that clickers offered?
Well, as you know, I did some research into clickers because I thought essentially you could use any sort of quiz method to get many different benefits. So I wanted to know what it was that clickers offered that Moodle quizzes and paper quizzes didn't offer. And the main benefit seemed to be that there's that level of anonymity there. You don't have to know who it is that has responded. Also, they get to position themselves against other people in the class, so they might think that they're really behind, whereas if you ask them a question, actually quite a lot of them don't get it. They realise that it's not just them, so they don't feel so anxious, so alone. And also it raises participation in classes, so a number of things you can do. Not every student wants to respond, but I've never had it where I've had a single person who hasn't engaged with the clickers tasks. So it was just a way of getting them to engage as well.
And so, did you find them quite easy to set up the clickers?
Very easy, yeah. I mean, but originally for the first session, when I did it, it did take me about 20 minutes more than usual because I didn't believe that it was that easy, and I was waiting for the opportunity to find something that proved that it wasn't that easy. But it takes just as long as doing a normal class, and to set it up as well, you just click an extra button and it does it. And once the students know how they work, which takes a matter of minutes, yeah, not much time at all.
So if a member of staff wanted to start using clickers, could you offer any advice to them?
I'd say, firstly, don't make it so that you're just asking them question after question after question. Use it so that you've got time to discuss the things that you're looking at, so you can get the most out of it. And always save your slides onto your desktop, because for some reason Wisdom doesn't like working directly from Moodle. So those are my tips.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Stella.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Stella. That was really interesting. If you would like to use your Wisdom clickers with your students, please do come and see us. We can help you set up your presentations and also come into your lectures and help you actually use them with your students. So we're there to support you with that. Okay, so this comes to the end of our first e-learning podcast. I hope you found it useful. If you'd like to get involved in future podcasts, we'll be running them once a month. If you want to showcase what you've been doing, anything particularly good with Moodle, Mahara, or any other technologies that you've come across, we'll be really, really happy to hear from you. If not, we'll probably be coming looking for you as well. So thank you very much for watching the podcast. Any feedback is really, really appreciated. Thank you. Bye.